Okay, hello everybody. My name is Ollie Ben. I am the Director of Philanthropy and Social Impact at the Jewish Community Foundation. Welcome to Access to Insight. We've been doing Access to Insight since the lockdown began, and the purpose was really to help establish a sense of community in this time when we feel very disconnected, but also to help us make sense of what's going on in the world around us right now, because there's a lot of information to consume. And all of the editions of Access to Insight are available on our website, so you're invited to check out the previous sessions. We've gone through various different aspects of the crisis so far. We've had experts from the La Jolla Institute of Immunology talking about the actual virus. We've had financial planning experts. We've had representatives of nonprofits talking about the needs of the most vulnerable local communities in San Diego. And we had the school superintendent from San Diego talking about what back to school might look like and some of the struggles and challenges they have been facing with schools and learning. We decided to shift gears a little bit today. Rather than talking about any of the substantive areas of the crisis, we wanted to zoom way out, because this is a very confusing time. There are so many uncertainties right now about vaccines, immunity. We've got the stock market roaring higher while there's more people unemployed than at any point in recent memory. So we wanted to ask somebody to come on today who could share some words of wisdom and help us sort of navigate uncertain times and talk about how to find resilience in challenging times. So we're very excited to have Robert Price with us here today, and Janet will be interviewing him shortly. After our conversation with Robert Price, we'll have a news update from our CEO, Beth Cyril, where she'll be sharing some updates from the Jewish Community Foundation. But first, in an effort to make this a bit more interactive and to help us tailor our content to you even better, we're going to ask you to take this quick poll or quick questionnaire where it's just 3 simple questions. You can just click on them to answer them on the screen, and it will help us understand who you are and how we can best tailor our content to you. So feel free to go ahead and submit those questions. I can see the answers rolling in real time. We're going to give another 20 or 30 seconds for folks to submit those answers. Thank you so much for doing so. So we'll just take a little bit longer to do that. By the way, there are 124 people so far signed in. That is very, very exciting. We thank you all so much for attending. And we have good participation so far. We have about 55% of people have completed it, and another 5% are trying to figure out where the mouse is on the screen. And then everyone else is sitting tight. So thank you so much for doing that. All right, I'm going to give another 10 seconds because I still see the votes coming in. All right. So about 80% of people, this is your first time attending JCF's Access to Insight webinars. So thank you so much. That's very great that you are here. Thank you for joining. About 40, and this was multiple choice, so this will go above 100%. About 43% are Jewish community members, a third are JCF fund holders, a quarter are non-profit professionals. We also have some professional advisors on the phone or on the Zoom. 47% are relatives, friends, or colleagues of Robert Price. So Robert, you are quite the draw. And then we have 11% who answered other. About half of the audience is very familiar with the work of the Jewish Community Foundation. A third is somewhat familiar, and 16% not very familiar at all. So with that, I will share that, I'll turn this over to Janet Acheatel, who is our board chair. Janet has been serving as the board chair of the Jewish Community Foundation. She is a senior wealth advisor at Hoyle Cohen LLC, a wealth management fiduciary, where she co-founded its women's practice. Janet has also recently served in volunteer leadership roles at Hillel of San Diego, near and dear to my heart, and Congregation Beth Israel. Sometimes board chairs are the unsung heroes of nonprofits, and certainly, Janet, you give so much time and effort to the organization, and we're very grateful to you for everything you do. So Janet, over to you to talk a little bit more about the Jewish Community Foundation and to introduce Robert.
Great. Thank you all for being here. We've got the largest number of participants zooming in, so thanks again for joining us in today's Access to Insight webinar with our special guest, Robert Price. For the half of you who are somewhat unfamiliar with the Jewish Community Foundation, we're the largest grant maker in San Diego. On behalf of our donors, $1.6 billion has been granted to nonprofits, with about 80% of that staying local. JCF also manages endowment funds for some of the largest Jewish and secular organizations in San Diego. And importantly, JCF supports the philanthropic goals of donors and families in a variety of personalized ways. At JCF, we believe every individual has the power to make a difference, and together we can change the world. Thank you, Robert, for sharing how you and your family make a difference, and for helping each of us gain insight into our own power to change the world. Unlike many of us, Robert Price was born and raised in San Diego. He received his Bachelor of Arts degree from Pomona College with a major in government. He then began working with his father, Saul Price, at FedMart Corporation, a company his father founded in 1954. In 1976, Robert and his father, Saul, founded the Price Company. You don't have to have lived in San Diego very long to have shopped at Price Club. Price Club merged with Costco in 1993, after which Robert and his father established Price Enterprises, a publicly traded real estate company, and Price Smart, a publicly traded warehouse club retail company operating in Latin America. Currently, Robert Price serves as chairman of the board of Price Smart. He's also president of Price Philanthropies, a private operating foundation, and president of the Aaron Price Fellows Foundation. Robert lives in San Diego with his wife, Allison, and their children and grandchildren. Hello, Robert.
Hi, Janet.
We're grateful.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Great.
Hope you are too. We're grateful to be able to spend time with you today, particularly during these unusual times when the coronavirus is presenting unprecedented challenges, along with creating a lot of fear. Please share with us how your life experiences have informed you about dealing with challenging times, and what suggestions do you have for our listeners?
Well, thank you, Janet. Thank you for the invitation and also for the leadership that the Jewish Community Foundation has shown through these difficult times. You're really exemplars as some followers for us to follow in terms of our performance. I wanted to just say one thing about the people, the 47% who are my acquaintances. No arms were twisted, no coercion. I hope that they're here of their own free will. But I want to say hi to all of my friends from the various parts of our life. As far as challenges, the biggest challenge that I've ever faced was in 1989 when our son Aaron became ill and ultimately passed away. And for sure, that was beyond anything else that has ever impacted my life. But I wanted to just mention a few lessons that came out of that that may have application today. One is the fact that we set a goal, Allison and I, that we were our family would stay intact after Aaron passed away, and that we would be there for our children and for each other. And many families don't get through something like that, and we were able to actually strengthen our family. The second thing is that we could have never made it without the rest of our family and our friends, some of whom are on this call today, who were there for us during that tough time. The third thing that came out of that was something my father did, a life-affirming thing he did, which is to found the Aaron Price Fellows Program. And that program, over 1,000 high school students here in San Diego have participated in that program. And we're very proud, Allison and myself, of what these young people have done with their lives. But I want to call out one whose name I won't mention because it's not a political event, but we do have one from the class of 1996 who's running for mayor and may become the next mayor of San Diego. So I'm not going to say who it is, but people can figure that out. The other thing I want to mention in terms of challenges is I've learned about challenges vicariously. And what I mean by that is, because I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. And my grandmother was an immigrant when she was 12 or 13 from Minsk. And she immediately went to work in the garment district in the Lower East Side. And my grandmother early on became a big supporter of David Dubinsky and the International Garment Workers Union. So she set an example of in situations where you have challenges that you do something about it. You're not passive, you do something. The other vicarious opportunity I've had with the Aaron Price Fellows, Allison and I, is to meet on numerous occasions with John Lewis, Congressman John Lewis, and he has told us about the Freedom Rides and about his time in Selma. And all of that has inspired us to do things that we might not otherwise do. And finally, I have a lot of friends who worked up in Delano in the Central Valley during those farm worker days, fighting for the dignity and the respect that the farm workers deserved. And that has been another inspiration where people have challenges, but you get up and you do something about it. And I think the one advice I would give is to set a goal as to where you want to end up, and then to work backwards to find the best way to get there. Your result's not going to be perfect. And of course, there's this saying that the perfect is the enemy of the good. But what you do is you try to get to the best place you can get to. And I think that's where we're at in this pandemic, is that we're not going to have perfect choices, but we have the opportunity to make good choices and to do things that are going to help people.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your candor. In some ways, I'm sure either to as great or possibly a lesser degree, hopefully a lesser degree, I'm sure everyone on the call has had some life-changing challenge in their lives. So thank you for sharing yours and for the insight of folks like John Lewis and certainly the farm workers can teach us a lot. Thank you. I'd like to switch gears for a minute and talk a little bit about your role as founder and chairman of the board of PriceSmart, a company similar to Price Club and Costco doing business in Latin America. We'd love to know what your experience dealing with coronavirus in developing countries, such as Costa Rica and Panama, has been.
Well, it's been challenging. And when we became aware of this coronavirus, we did some things that immediately kind of put us at the point where we wanted to end up, if we could end up there successfully. One is we wanted to save the company. And when this all started, it wasn't clear that we would be able to save the company. So we focused particularly on our balance sheet and our cash flow and did everything we could, and we are doing well, to get through this. And we fortunately had a strong balance sheet, which was really an advantage, very little debt. But the other thing that's far more significant is the fact that we have 9,000 employees, and 8,000 of those employees are in these countries where we do business. And those employees generally are very lower income. And we decided that in no event were we gonna allow them to lose their jobs, that we would keep them employed. And we've done that. And I think we did it because it worked, because we made up our mind that the most important responsibility we had, even more than to our shareholders, was to these employees. And so the employees now have been cross-trained. They've been able to learn new trades, new ways of working. But the most important thing, I think, is that in all of our experience with 8,000 employees in these countries, we've had only 40 cases identified of the coronavirus, and we've had nobody die. And we've been able to operate, continue to operate successfully. So and I'll tell you, we run the range of government responses. In Nicaragua, the government says there's no coronavirus. And if you wear a mask, you can be fined. That's one extreme. The other extreme is that in a place like Honduras, because they don't have the infrastructure, the health infrastructure, et cetera, they've actually closed down stores, even even the basic stores, for 50% of the time to try to control the spread of the virus. So we've had to survive in very, very different circumstances, but we've been able to get through it. And I really compliment the leadership of the team. I'm not the one doing it, by the way. I'm just kind of on the sidelines, but these, our leaders have really done a great job, and I'm really proud of them.
Well, that's so great that your employees have had such a small experience dealing, firsthand with the illness. I know just at the small enterprise that I work at, management's commitment to keeping everybody employed means so much to us. So I have a little insight into how your employees are feeling with your commitment to keeping them all working. So thank you for that. I know you do a lot of work locally as well. So I'd love to know some more about how your foundations and your family are approaching the challenges of coronavirus here locally, but especially in City Heights, where the Price Philanthropies has been making such a positive impact for over 25 years.
Thank you, Janet. Well, what we did, as soon as this virus became something that we really felt was threatening to people in the community, we set up a special fund within Price Philanthropies to be used for the issues that we felt were most important. So we identified the money we wanted to have available, and then our team, we have a great team of grant makers who actually are familiar with the kinds of issues that we face every day, but they've been amplified, these issues, just 100 times because of the people being out of work and domestic violence and all of the things that are being factored in because of this virus. They came to us and said, these are the places that we think we can have the most impact, because $5 million is what we allocated, but that's not very much money when you think about the degree of need. Mm-hmm. So what did we do? We have, our foundation has some apartment houses. We immediately cut the rents by 50%. We in our office building, we cut rents for most of our tenants by 50%. We have set up funding for the food bank, for social service agencies. We've also worked on immigrant, especially non-documented immigrant funding. We gave to the California fund that's been set up by Governor Gavin Newsom to help undocumented. We've been involved with the ACLU, making sure that the rights of people in detention centers and the protections in detention centers are being taken care of as best as possible. But in addition to that, and that's really our core, is dealing with human needs and social services for people in City Heights and also for people in challenged communities. We've also focused somewhat on the arts and culture, because in San Diego, we're not experts in this area, but we know that many of the, particularly the performing arts organizations that don't have audiences right now, have really been impacted by this situation. And so we're working closely with a number of them to try to come up with ways to support them and to be helpful. But at the end of the day, we want to get through this and have San Diego return to a community that's vibrant and where people are employed and children are back in school and parents are back in work and mothers can get their sanity back instead of being home taking care of their kids, working and trying to make it all come together. So that's kind of been our focus here in San Diego.
Yeah, I know it's kind of easy for us to think in terms of, oh, my tickets to, a play or a symphony or anything like that, and how it's impacted us as individuals that way. But, to keep mindful, the set designers and the violinists and all those great artists out there that bring such wonderful, joy into our hearts on a constant basis are in real need as well. So thank you for that work. So do you have any advice for us listeners as to how we can support families and businesses locally that are suffering as a result of the coronavirus?
Just a few quick ideas for advice. One is to be kind to yourself. Take care of yourself, take care of your family, and even be kind to people who don't wear masks. because they they probably are well-intentioned, you know, and we get aggravated. I mean, I'm talking from a point of view of a person that wears a mask, but you know, even within families, there are people who are not too keen on wearing masks, and you have to get along and you do the best you can. The other thing is that you don't have to be a big donor to make an impact. I mean, we know the vulnerable populations, people that are older, that are shut in, minority groups who are not given the opportunity to have as much spacing and who have to work every day in dangerous jobs. I think anything we can do to support people, the vulnerable people, people in our own families is good enough. And if you do anything extra beyond that, that's even nicer.
I'm sure Beth Cyril, our CEO at Jewish Community Foundation, will be giving an update on some of the impact that a local fund that was set up is doing as well. I'm going to turn a little technical now and turn to some of the philanthropical vehicles that you and your family utilize, including a donor advised fund, a family foundation, an operating foundation, and of course, personal donations. In what ways do each of these vehicles, how are they useful in supporting your philanthropic endeavors?
Well, that's a really important question, and probably too much, we don't have enough time to get into it in the way that maybe we could, but the largest area of donations comes from the philanthropies, which is a private operating foundation. And we do more than grant making. We run programs. We have about 50 people who are employees of that foundation. And so we're much more hands-on than some individuals maybe who are primarily grant makers. So we see our role as being more than grant makers. We're also involved in running programs. That's one thing. We use the Jewish Community Foundation's Advise Fund from time to time based on situations that make sense for that. And then sometimes we write a check. I'll give you an example. We've been supporting people who've been detained in Tijuana at these centers that are really just on the edge as far as being able to keep food for these people. They are not 501c3s. We can't deduct it. So Alice and I have been just writing checks, getting food to the people. We're not going to get a deduction for that. And then we have a personal family foundation, and that foundation is with our children to teach them about philanthropy, and hopefully they'll carry on in the future. So those are the various devices. There's a lot more to say, but not the time. Okay, so what happened?
Janet, you're still on mute.
So that has to happen on every call, right? That's
okay.
The new.
Glad it was you and not me.
I was trying to be kind earlier. I just was saying that I'm proud to say that my husband Larry and I are proud users of the Donor Advice Fund as a teaching vehicle for our children and grandchildren too. So for those of you who aren't aware of that, that may be something that you'd want to look into in terms of your family legacy. So my last question, before we get to, we see if there are questions from our audience, is that throughout these past few months dealing with the pandemic, what do you feel most proud of related to the philanthropic support you've developed?
I'm most proud, for sure, of the people who have on our team at Price Philanthropies who have led the effort to properly do the grants, identify the organizations. It's just amazing to me. And actually the two leaders in this area, both are young mothers who have young children at home, and they're dealing with all of that. And they have been so fantastic in how they've been able to do everything that they need to do in their lives. I don't know how they do it. I mean, it's just, as a man, I don't think I have a clue. But and be able to handle the philanthropy in such a thorough and thoughtful way, I just can't say enough about them and the rest of the team. It's just incredible.
I don't know if our audience heard that last part because it was blocked for me. There was a little technical
No,
problem.
we got it. I think we heard it actually. It was great.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah. So
So,
anyway, and I just, I don't know. It just has, the last few weeks have just been that much better because of what they do. I just can't say enough.
yeah, I'm with you on that.
Okay.
So we've had at least one person wondering about the young graduates out there who are struggling with the uncertainty, particularly of their working future. What message would you share with them?
Well, use your time wisely. I guess the thing is, I think young people don't realize they're young and they have their whole future ahead of them. And a lot of times when you go through tough times, it makes you stronger and you learn a lot. And rather than being depressed, try to be optimistic and think that we're going to get through this and we're going to be better for it. So that would be my message.
Wonderful. So our next question, there's a thank you for a wonderful presentation that you're providing, but also bringing your father into it. Your father told this person once that it was harder to give money away than to make it. And want to know if you feel that way as well.
Well, I think they're both hard. I don't know. I would never say it's so easy to have a successful business. I think you have to work very diligently and really have a lot of good people around you. I don't think that's easy, but giving money away well is a lot harder than what some people might think, because it really does require research and weighing one against the other, and because you don't have a limited amount of funding when you have to make choices. So it's not easy.
Yeah, that word well, doing it well is so important. I'm proud to say that the staff at JCF does such an amazing job of helping folks find the right avenues for doing that exactly. So our next question is regarding what normal might look like. Some people say we won't return to normal, but it will be a new normal. And the question is a two-part question. What do you think will be different? And what are you hoping will be different when the pandemic passes?
That's a really good question. And who knows? I mean, it's really hard to answer. You know, there have been some good things that have happened. I mean, the traffic on the freeways is a lot less. The air is cleaner. A lot of people I've talked to have gotten to know bird species a lot better than they did before. So there have been some good things. I think the challenge through all of this, particularly, are communities that already are challenged, older people, people who are poor, who this has fallen on particularly hard. What I really hope will come out of this is a renewed effort on the part of society to care for people who are from those communities in a better way. We've made progress with older people. We haven't done enough. We still have a long way to go with people who are in lower incomes in terms of healthcare, proper wages, education. So maybe out of this, maybe like during the New Deal when we had programs like Social Security, that we will come out of this in a more caring way about people who are, let's say, always have been suffering. And I think jobs are going to change. I think there's going to be permanent change in many jobs. I think this is not just even though it's only lasted a few months, I think things have happened here that are really going to change the way people work.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this might be kind of a spin-off to that answer. This person is wondering if you're engaged in any collaborative funding efforts with local funders outside of the financial assistance you're providing for the immigrant community. And are there specific local COVID-related needs you would encourage others to address here in San Diego?
Okay. COVID-related needs. I mean, other than what I've talked about, I'm not sure I have a lot to add to that. I'm sorry, I may be failing this question, but
No worries.
I'm not quite sure that I can think of the right response to that one.
Well, here's one I wish I had asked, because I can use your advice on this. What do you personally like to do to de-stress and find balance in your life?
Swim.
Ah,
We're about ready to get back in the ocean. We haven't gone back yet, but Allison and I are both swimmers, and that's probably the most de-stressing thing we know how to do. Although Allison does other things, she's a lot better at it than I am. I'm stressed most of the time.
Here's a nice short one, but could be a long answer, of course. What lessons do you think will sustain from this pandemic? You talked a little bit about, you know, some changes in work and that sort of thing. Anything else you can think of?
Well, I don't know. I guess it's more of a hope. I hope that something will come out of this is we'll be a little more respectful to each other in terms of being more humble about knowing that we don't have all the answers, any one of us, and that we can listen to somebody else without getting our blood pressure up too high. That would be nice. The other part, which I said earlier, is I think we, as a society, we have to figure out how to address the needs of people who have been marginalized and who need a better break in life.
Yeah, we're all facing this pandemic as equals, aren't we? In some respects.
Yes.
How do we honor those who are really essential in our society, as demonstrated by this pandemic, beyond COVID? People like grocery workers and trash collectors and others on the front lines.
Oh my gosh. Well, I guess we've all come to honor people who might not have been honored before. I mean, grocery workers, who would have ever thought of honoring grocery workers? But I guess some of it is in the future treating them well in terms of pay and in terms of working conditions. I think that's true of people who do janitorial work. I think people in meat cutting plants who have been put in situations where they haven't had the proper safety and health security, honoring those people through making sure they work in the right working conditions. I think the best way to honor people is to make corrections and improvements in society where we've just haven't done what we should have done.
Yeah. Switch gears to the business side a little bit. This person says, I was very impressed to hear you speak of your stakeholders, your employees, over your shareholders. There's a movement to further what is sometimes called stakeholder capitalism. Do you think the balance between stakeholders and shareholders will change as a result of the pandemic?
Well, I guess I don't think of it as a balance in the first place. My sense is that in order of responsibility, the first responsibilities in our kind of culture is to our employees. That's the first. The second is to our customers or our members. And the third is to our shareholders. And we've always said if we take care of the first two well, the shareholders will come out fine. But I don't think it's a balance. I really think it's a matter of commitment to how do you think about people who work in your company or organization as people who have lives, who have needs, and make sure those needs are properly respected and satisfied.
I suspect this question is, and I could be misinterpreting it, but it's coming more from, you know, what we know about Wall Street and many publicly held companies that don't look at it that way, and there's just this general sense of hope that maybe you know, it will be three-pronged, like you're saying, or multi-pronged, like you're saying, and yeah, we don't have to think of it in terms of balanced. I don't know if you have anything more to share on that.
Not really. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the way I was brought up. And I know when Jim Sinegal started Costco, and he worked with my dad as well, you know, and for many years, that kind of ethic was part of the DNA of Costco. And it can be done. I mean, Costco's done okay. They haven't done badly. And they take pretty good care of their employees. I think it could be done.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Well, I'm going to wrap it up with this last question. How do you engage your children and grandchildren in deciding who to fund? Then I'll leave it to you to make any final remarks you'd like to make.
Okay, well, I'll tell you one thing about children and grandchildren. My approach has been to lead by example. And my children, we have 2 grown daughters who have their own children, and our son who's not married yet. I think we're very proud of them. We've just tried to be humble and tried to do the right thing, and hopefully by example, they picked up on that.
Great. And thank you, Robert, again for your insights and for sharing how you and your family are making a difference in San Diego and the world. And now I'd like to bring in Jcf CEO Beth Cyril to wrap up today's program. Thanks again.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Janet, and good afternoon. Welcome to today's edition of JCF Update. Here are our top stories. Since the pandemic began at the middle of March, JCF has granted over $8 million into the San Diego community. That's a 25% gain over this time last year. So we're very appreciative of our generous donors. Thank you. And we want to highlight on the screen right now the incredible diversity of organizations that JCF donors have recommended grants to at this time. Nonprofits need your support more than ever right now, and we are calling our donors, asking them to consider making grants. We're here to help, and if you need any advice on your giving, please reach out to Ollie at jcfsandiego.org or anyone else on our donor services team. The most likely lasting impacts of the pandemic are economic ones. The need to create jobs, particularly in San Diego's low-income, underserved neighborhoods, is pressing. To address this challenge, JCF is partnering with Mission Driven Finance, a San Diego-based impact investment management company. Mission Driven Finance manages a fund called the Advance 2025 Fund, and this fund makes low-interest loans to businesses and nonprofits to help them create quality jobs and to produce positive social impact in San Diego. So you can use the money in your donor advised fund to make an investment in the Advance 2025 Loan Fund. And the way it works is you make the investment, you will earn interest on your investment into your DAF. The Advance 2025 Fund will lend that money out, and then in 2025, your investment will be returned to your donor advised fund, and you can grant it or reinvest it. If you're interested in learning more about how you can use your donor advised fund for this kind of an investment to do both well and good, please contact me. Our last top story is the Jewish Teen Foundation. This is the Jewish Community Foundation's effort to train the next generation of philanthropists. This year's teens, under unusual circumstances, chose 2 focus areas, the environment and children with special needs. Now, they were not able to make site visits and the like, but they did conduct virtual site visits and interviews of prospective grantees, and they ultimately decided to grant over $20,000 to these 7 worthy organizations. So we are super proud of our teens, and the program will start up again in September. If you know high school age young people who would be interested, please also contact me. Finally, I would like to invite you to please tune in on June 9th at noon. That is when Access to Insight will welcome a radio personality, Scott Kaplan, who will be speaking on the future of sports. No high fives, empty stadiums, but some silver linings. Please join us for that. Again, it's noon on June 9th. Thanks so much. Good afternoon.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Before you go, we have one more survey that we'd be very grateful if you would very quickly complete. It's a 3-question survey. We just want to know how today went and what you would like to see in the future. So please complete that really quickly. And I will just repeat what Beth said, that we have a very interesting change of pace next time, in 2 weeks' time, when we will have Scott Kaplan, the sports radio personality, talking about the future of sports, which is a subject that I imagine is very interesting to a lot of people. So thank you once again for your time. I will leave the poll open and we will see you in a few weeks' time. Thank you so much.